Unit 3. Types of employment. This unit is designed to introduce types and procedures of employment and additional useful information in employer-employee relation to the learners. After acquiring knowledge from this unit, learners will be qualified to understand and implement different types of employment procedure, understand the implementation of national legal provision from work and work relation fields. Introduction. There are few types of employment based on legal regulations on which employment contract between employer and employee can be concluded. Any kind of employment contract defines obligations and protects the rights of both contracting parties, employee and employer. Permanent employment. Employment without the termination date. Fixed-term employment. Employment with specified reason for employment and termination date. Seasonal employment. Fixed-term employment with specified termination date. Permanent seasonal employment. The occupational record goes even though an employee may not still work. During this period, the employer pays monthly retirement contribution, and health insurance is paid by the state, one of the employment boost measures. Employment procedure, employers and employees' obligations. Employment procedure. When searching for the adequate workforce, employers usually develop and post job advertisement in which all data about the position, competencies, skills, and required level of education is written. Before publishing job ad, in order to find an appropriate employee, the employer has a possibility to use help from the Cyprus Employment Service to adjust ad to his needs. Example, need for employees application to Cyprus Employment Service. There is no legal obligation for the employer to report employment service or any other public institution about job application or its results. Job advertisement can be published on several web pages. Cyprus Employment Service, Cyprus Government Gazette, other employment agencies' web pages. There are following steps after job ad's expiration date: review of received CV, interview and candidate selection. Employers and employees' obligations. When an employer has chosen a candidate, the following steps are required: gathering and validation of other documentation of the selected candidate. Documents listed or attached to the curriculum vitae of the selected candidate are the candidate's personal statements or documentation, which proves that the conditions of the application are fulfilled. Additional documentation is required when the employment contract is signed, for the work evidence, legal service, and accounting needs, salary calculation division. In order for the employer to ensure that he will have all the necessary documentation in time to fulfill his obligations accepted by signing the employment contract, he/she has the right to request a complete documentation before signing the employment contract. Gathering all extra documentation which is obligated in specific business branches. An applicant can have valid certificates from his former employer, for example, sanitary examinations certificate, caterer, hairdresser, beautician, etc., minimum hygienic certificate, caterer, and/or medical examinations certificate, construction workers. If the validation date of mentioned documents is expired, the employer's obligation is to obtain employee new certificate. Mentioned documents expense is paid by the employer. Presentation and acceptance of labor regulation. The employer is obligated to give employee labor regulation, if there is any, to read and sign its acceptance. On the other hand, the employee has to read it and sign decision of its acceptance. Employment contract. After the employer is ensured that has all necessary documentation, and it is in order to legal requirements and his business policy, the last step can be fulfilled: drawing up and signing the employment contract. There are standard employment contract forms for indefinite and fixed-term period that contain all basic elements and regulations that the contract must have. If wanted, the employer can make employment contract with more details and regulations. All regulations included in employment contract must be in accordance with labor law and other legal regulation foreseen for specific cases or certain profession. Other employer-employee obligations. Some specific business legislation requires that employees pass additional exams, for example, In some industries connected with user customers' health protection, employee is obligated to make a sanitary examination. Sanitary certificate has to be renewed within the legal deadline. Employees in catering industry must pass minimum hygienic exam. Construction workers are obligated to do health examination before employment. Additionally, each employer is obliged to choose a specialist of occupational medicine for his employees, usually according to the working place, filling in the appropriate form verified by a stamp and signature of the responsible person. Registration in retirement and health insurance system. When hiring the first employee, the employer must make a registration in Social and Retirement Security Subject Registry. Next to the registration form, following documentation must be attached. Legal entity. Decision of registration in the court register. Decision from Social Insurance Services and law about the company's business activity in line with the National Classification of Business Activities. Natural person, SP. Decision of registration in trade registry. Identity card copy of the employee. Confirmation of the beginning of personal insurance on the form. In case of for foreign citizens, work permit. Registration forms for legal entity and the natural person can be found on the following links. The employer or the company's accountant brings in-person employment registration forms at the Retirement and Health Insurance Office. When registering new employees, in the Retirement and Health Insurance, the following documents are needed. Copy of employee's identity card. Social insurance registration number. If the employee is not registered before, he/she should register before beginning to work. In case of employees, registration through Internet health insurance form is not needed because the registration is managed automatically through the retirement insurance system. Every employer has to register his/her employees in the social insurance system from the first day of their job. If not, he/she may pay some penalty money because of any delay in the registration process. Each employer and employee has to work properly under the Cyprus EE law regulations. You can learn about these regulations extendedly by reading this guide in Greek. The Department of Labour, a part of the Ministry of Labour, Welfare and Social Insurance of the Republic of Cyprus, is responsible for issues of employment, including equality between men and women. More specific responsibilities of the department include, among other things, protection of special groups in employment, public employment services, free movement of European Union workers, employment of workers from third countries, and some aspects of human resource development. Also, everyone can contact the services of the Ministry of Labour, Welfare and Social Insurance to learn all the legal obligations and rights that he/she may have during his/her work under the agreed employment contract. Moreover, under the same ministry, there is the Department of Labour Regulations, when every detail can be provided by the employees, for any employment contract from both sides, employer, natural body, employee. Below there are links of useful websites where everyone can find a lot of helpful information for the services mentioned above.